You're listening to the Savoir Faire audio experience.
Are you ready?
The Savoir Faire experience is your guide to everything that has to do with lifestyle. From dating, rides, style, and entertainment. All brought to you by the editor of Savoir Faire magazine, Robert White. Anything goes on this audio experience. So, let's go.
It's still the best.
All right, guys, welcome to the Savoir Faire audio experience. Thank you guys for listening, following, and subscribing. We appreciate you. Keep sharing our content. We definitely appreciate the awareness. We love bringing you new articles and interviews with people that we get to meet and giving you the kind of behind the scenes Q&A. And today's really no exception to that rule. We're going to do it all over again. Today, we're meeting with Melanie Balestra. Hello, Melanie.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. I appreciate you finding some time for me today. For those that don't know who Melanie is, she is a pediatric nurse practitioner for 45 years, an attorney for 23 years, and now we can add author to this title for you. She wrote a book that's pretty personal to her, so we're excited to kind of dive in and educate some people about this stuff. Melanie, one of the things that I wanted to start with today, just to get more backstory here, is if you can tell us a little bit about your background and then kind of lead us into an introduction of who you are. I think that's a good starting point.
Okay. As you had said, I've been a pediatric nurse practitioner for 45 years and then an attorney. And I had two children. And one of my daughters, I thought at an early age, had some mental health issues. And as a pediatric nurse practitioner, I thought I'd be a perfect mother because I knew all about pediatrics. But unfortunately, this was not true because my experience in pediatric was mainly for physical illnesses and not mental illnesses. And when my second daughter was born, Leah, just at a very young age, she didn't sleep well. She was extremely shy. And I just knew that something was going on, but made appointments with pediatricians and psychiatrists and counselors, and everybody kept saying, oh, no, it's normal, and she would grow out of it. And unfortunately, she did not grow out of it, and things became worse as she grew older. And then, unfortunately, she was part of a very dysfunctional family. So that didn't help at all. And I think we're seeing more and more of that today.
I see. So I wanted to dive into a little bit of your backstory and kind of get some insight to the reasoning behind this book that you wrote. The book is called Suicide: A Mother's Journey Through Her Child's Pain. Is this a personal story that you kind of wrote? Is this what the book's about?
Yes, it's about my experience with Leah. And when she died from suicide, obviously it was very, very traumatic for me. And I just, started going through all of her things and found diaries that she had had. And it was almost a cathartic thing for me to write the book also, because it was like I had these interpretations of her actions and what was going on, and yet I really didn't know what she was feeling. And through her diaries, I was able to, delve into how she was actually feeling. And she was an extremely unhappy child and an adult. She had no self-esteem, was very, negative about everything. And the way she portrayed herself to people, she was fun-loving and, enjoyed doing everything, but she never let her real self come out. And so after reading her diaries, I decided to go ahead and write the book. And I thought, well, if I could show other parents how just they could easily misinterpret things and really not delve into what's going on with their child, that hopefully that would make them a little bit more aggressive when they felt their child was having a mental health problem. So it never gets to the point where they die by suicide. And then even beyond that, I went into some of my coping mechanisms, because I had gone to many support groups, and I came out being more depressed than when I went in. So my daughter Lisa and I would talk about Leah all the time, and we decided the best way to cope with her suicide was not to forget and not to think about all the negative things that happened, but all the really good things that happened in her life. And so we both believe that Leah's with us always. I mean, we'll be going shopping and think, oh, Leah would love this, or Leah would like that. And then I even had an incident where I was having neck surgery done, and Leah's favorite artist was Eminem, who I'm not a rap star, so I'm not fond of Eminem or any of the rap. But suddenly he came on Lisa's phone. She was beside me, and Lisa goes, "Mama, I don't have any of Eminem's songs on my phone." And I knew it was Leah coming through saying, she was there with me. And I'll be driving along in the car sometimes, and suddenly Eminem will come on, and I don't have him on any of my stations either. So I know Leah is with us always, and I believe, she would not want Lisa nor myself to throw away the rest of our lives, but to go forward and to try to make people more aware of what is going on with our young kids today, because the suicide rate is the second cause of death for young people in the United States. And I mean, that's really, really bad. So that's kind of what I did. And then also, I mean, I have, I'm a Christian, and I have a total faith in God and Jesus. And I just believe that, again, we don't understand what God's purpose is for things, but there is a purpose. And I think that the purpose of all of this happening was for me to help, and Leah in her death, help other people become more aware and be able to help their children so the same thing doesn't happen to them.
Yeah, I completely understand your perspective on some of this stuff. First, I wanted to say that I'm extremely sorry to hear about your daughter and what kind of took place. When you wrote the book, though, after reading through her journals and stuff, are there pieces of her journal in this book, or is it all from your perspective as a parent?
No, I have actual pieces of her journal.
Okay, so there's also some of that information that you've kind of put in there. And from a clinical perspective, are you starting to analyze some of the things that your daughter was going through? Is that where some of your knowledge and information is coming into the book? I mean, other parents are going to read this, obviously, that could relate to the situation or went through something very similar. And so some of the clinical guidance that you're putting in this book is also there too, right?
Yes, it is. Areas where, if you see this or see this symptom or that symptom, it's an indication something's going on and you need to do something more. And the way our society is going today, the children are getting less and less actual parental attention. And I think parents, to some extent, are losing, control of raising their own children. And so it's a very different society now than, when I grew up. So
yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you on that point and perspective that parents are really kind of, it's interesting to see how things have changed. I feel like maybe the parenting plan from your generation, you being a
Mm-hmm.
parent or your parents taking care of you, was completely different. Maybe they were heavily engaged and really kind of focused on making sure that you were getting, some attention, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And modern day, I just don't see a lot of that stuff. I was curious about this because I'm also in the process of writing a book, um,
Ah.
and my book is about my own life. And when you
Mm-hmm.
start writing your own stuff and you start kind of analyzing stories and looking at things that happened to you in your life and start kind of reliving them, did you go through some?
Mm-hmm.
It becomes a very like therapeutic and emotional process. Did you go through
Yes.
a lot of this while writing the book?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because the book even goes up to the way I was brought up and
Mm,
how that kind of influenced uh, the way the person I married and what happened during the marriage and all of that. I don't think we realize what happens in our childhood can influence our life for many, many years beyond that.
yeah.
And, I think that's something we really need to be aware of too. I'm first generation American. And so my family is Italian and very old fashioned Italian, very strict, very patriarchal. And so, what my father said went, that end of story. No
Mm-hmm.
argument, no nothing. And so I was raised in a very strict environment. And my father believed that, he wanted me to go to college because nobody in our family had ever been to college. So my brother and I, we knew that we were going, but my father really thought I'd go to college, get married, have kids, end the story. And I kind of went a different route because I really enjoyed nursing school and obviously went on to be a pediatric nurse practitioner and then eventually wanted more education to an attorney. But then that influences to some extent the person that you marry.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think, we just don't realize how, influential parenting can be. And I think that today, so many children are, lacking self-esteem because we even see, really popular kids in high school that die by suicide. And you're going, why on earth would that happen? Well, obviously that child, there was something going on and they were hiding it and the parents, never really investigated. They had their own life going on and they thought their child was doing fine. And the other thing that happens is Leah was very, very, very smart. And so even though I must have had, I don't know, 5, 6 psychiatrists, she knew what the psychiatrist wanted to hear. So
Ah.
that's what she would tell them. And then the other problem that I see is we're so oriented towards medication.
Mm-hmm.
Medication. She was on so many different meds, and I was just going bonkers because I knew what they were doing, and yet it didn't seem to be helping. A lot of times, she was almost like a zombie because she was on so much medication. And so I think we really need to look at other avenues. And one of the organizations that I've recently come involved with and on the board, San Diego Center for Children in San Diego, has an incredible program where they work with these children, and it's just not all medicine. They do art therapy, they do horse therapy, they do music therapy. So we need to, broaden our approaches to mental illness and not just say, okay, we're going to send you to a psychiatrist, they'll put you on meds and you'll be fine. It's not the solution, unfortunately. It helps. And many times, depending on the diagnosis, if you have schizophrenia, bipolar, you may need to be on medication, but medication isn't just the answer. You really, truly need some counseling. And I think counseling with your parents is also very important, so you can get everybody's feelings out there and discuss them in a protected environment. And we just don't see that very much.
Yeah, I would agree. That's really cool that you're kind of involved with that in San Diego, and getting more involved in some of this kind of stuff. And I completely agree with you on the medication aspect. I think that kids are just way too over medicated. It's weird because not just for mental illness, but like, a kid could have ADHD and just be too hyper, and instantly they want to have that kid like in therapy and trying to figure out what's going on and getting medication just to wire them down. So now one kid has to be all drugged up so the teacher can handle the other 25 kids because one kid is just too hyper or something. Those things make a lot of sense, and those are obviously a lot of deep topics there. But I do want to talk about some of this stuff with you because obviously you wrote the book. You've definitely dove into this from a different perspective, not just a grieving mother, but also from a clinical perspective. And so what are some of the signs that parents should be focused on that maybe with their children in this regard, where they think this could be something that could be part of their world if they don't pay attention?
Okay. If you see your child is either very sad or very irritable all the time, I think of Leah. She didn't want to go to school in the morning. I had to literally coax her every morning. I would wake her up singing "You Are My Sunshine" to get her out of bed, to get her to go to school. And then she would rebel in school by flunking a course when she knew, she was perfectly capable of passing it, but she would flunk it. And part of it is, I believe, to get attention and some kind of recognition. Or if your child doesn't want to go out and go out with friends or to do things, or on the other extreme, they want to go out and party all the time and do drugs. And unfortunately, illicit drugs are very, very available, and I'm sure you're quite aware of the fentanyl problems that we've had. And kids just don't realize this. And with the ADD and the ADHD in my pediatric practice, particularly boys, you get teachers that they have so many kids in the class. And I remember just when I was young, boys tend to act out more and get into mischief more than girls do. So it's easy to label somebody like that when they're actually not. So that, any of these kinds of behaviors you really, need to delve into, and you need to get trust with your child so that your child realizes that you're not judging them, that you just want to help, and that you're not going to punish them, that, you just want to find out what's bothering them, or, what things are going on, or possibly talk to their friends. And like I said, if they have constant anxiety about school and social interactions, or even everyday activities where they just don't want to go, they don't feel like they belong, and they just withdraw. And Leah, oh my gosh, she started when she was about 4 or 5. I thought she was, abnormally shy. And of course, I took her to counselors, and they said, no, she'll grow out of it. Well, of course, she didn't. And then her reaction to that, as she got older, was to smoke pot and drink. And that way, that kind of took her out of her shyness. And then she became very, I don't want to say wild, but very, very outgoing, very jovial, that kind of thing. So again, pot is supposedly okay to smoke these days, but again, until you're 18, smoking pot can affect your brain. So it just isn't the safest drug, and I think we've gone a little too far in just accepting it. If they have frequent mood swings where one day they're really happy and then the next day they're just really depressed or sad, what is going on in their lives to, to have these kinds of mood swings. If they're avoiding social interactions, even with the family, as well as friends and that type of thing, or isolating themselves completely. They don't want to play sports. They don't want to do any activities with anyone. They just kind of, withdraw into themselves. If they're having problems in school, failing grades, lack of motivation, because again, in Leah's, we knew Leah was very smart, but she would really get bad grades sometimes, and she had no excuse and tried to punish her for that, and it didn't work. So again, you need counseling and together, and just not with one person. And particularly if you have a family situation where the parents don't get along or there's fighting in the family, this is extremely stressful to the child, and may have them withdrawing just from that. If they have frequent tantrums, arguments, defiance, and today some of the things I've run into too is that parents will say that anything their kid does is okay. Again, going back to my lifestyle growing up, if the teacher said I did something wrong, I was in trouble, period, end of story. And today, now we have kids that are accosting teachers. I mean, this is just not good, and gives the child just a false sense of what it's going to be like in adulthood, because you just can't do it. If they have difficulty, concentrating, they don't want to read, they don't want to do anything. And again, now we have all these games, and kids get addicted to the games, and we're seeing less and less interaction, live interaction. Everything is on iPhones. You go to dinner and everybody's on their iPhone. I think that, a good thing at dinner time, if you're having dinner together, is okay, iPhones, nobody's going to answer phone calls or texts or anything. We're going to actually communicate with each other. If they have sleep problems, difficulty falling asleep. Leah, she had insomnia from the time she was about 2 years old. She just did not sleep at all. Or nightmares, if they're having a lot of nightmares. Or excessive sleeping. That's the other thing. If they, want to sleep in all the time, they don't want to get up in the morning. They just want to go to bed. And, a certain amount of that you'll see in teenagers. But again, if it becomes excessive where they want to be in bed all the time, this is an indication something's going on. Eating habits. This is something. You can have everything from sudden weight loss where the child doesn't want to eat. Now, are they having bulimia or anorexia? That can be, and bulimia is easy to hide. And I think Leah had it at one time, and we didn't realize it because when she was eating with us, she really ate quite well, but then she kept losing weight. And again, nobody wanted to investigate that. So again, if a child is eating not very much, or if they're eating too much, either one of these can be signs of something going on. Physical symptoms, if they're having headaches, stomach aches, or other physical complaints where you take them to the doctor or the nurse practitioner and they can't come up with a definitive diagnosis. There's no physical diagnosis for why this is going on. If they're constantly tired, even though they're getting enough sleep, this is another indication. And then another one that you'll see quite frequently, but we don't always recognize, is cutting or burning. And Leah did this too, but she cut where you couldn't see. but the cutting is almost a way of releasing pain. So that, if you see that your child is cutting or burning themselves with a cigarette or any other dangerous activities, if they really like to do dangerous things all the time, this can be an indication that something's going on. If they talk about, oh, I'd be better off dead. And I mean, kids will say that, but if this is something more consistent, you just wish I were dead. If I were dead, then you wouldn't have this problem, threats like that to parents, or, just wanting to disappear. You'd be better off if I just ran away. So this is an indication something's going on that you don't know about. Again, substance abuse is huge today. Alcohol, of course, is big. I don't think it's quite as big as it used to be. I think drugs like fentanyl and Adderall and all these kinds of drugs are becoming used a lot more. So if you know your child is using drugs, then how do you tell if they're using drugs? Again, a change in behavior can indicate that they might be using some kind of drug. And it's relatively easy to get drugs into the school system, because I remember Leah telling me that, people came on campus and were selling drugs all the time. And it blew my mind, because I'm going, how can the school not know that somebody's selling drugs? But they either, I don't know why they didn't know, or they didn't investigate. But again, if your, kid is using drugs, then there's definitely a problem there. Or if they're seeing, hearing, or believing things that aren't real, if they're almost a hallucinogenic type of behavior. But all of these things can happen. And today, with social media, as you well know, the kids have died by suicide because somebody's writing a note saying you're ugly, you're a horrible person, you'd be better off dead. I mean, this is not really appropriate behavior, but we're seeing more and more of this on social media. So this is not helpful to our kids either, because they may be feeling good about something and then somebody writes something nasty about them.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you giving so much information. I mean, I'm listening to all the things that you're saying, and I'm hearing literally so many different signals and signs that most people would just ignore or not focus on. It's really, I mean, it's unfortunate that you learned so much about this going through the situation you went through, instead of if only there were manuals for things like this in the very beginning of having a child and being able to focus in on this stuff. But, I think that these things go 360, and as you said, as a woman of faith, based on your perspective and what you've learned about Leah in her diary, you now have written this book, and now there is a guide, or at least a story that people can read and follow and see if your child is potentially going through some of these situations and being able to figure that out. I wanted to give you just a couple more minutes, because I want to talk about the other side of this from the parent's perspective, and two pieces to this, really. There's obviously a piece in the book about the grieving aspect and how to grieve when you lose your child. But what are you seeing from the parent's perspective on what you can do and what you should be doing? It's so difficult when you hear someone say that they don't want to live anymore and they actually mean it. And the counseling aspects for most people just isn't there. So what do you recommend for people that run into a situation like that? Should they just be passing them along to a suicide hotline number? Is there something that we can do just as general public to help people in situations like that, especially when they're very publicly pronouncing that this is what they feel about themselves?
Yeah, there definitely are some hotlines that you can go to. And what the parents can do too with their kid is just start conversations with them and use open-ended questions and normalize their emotions. Don't make, you shouldn't be feeling this way. that doesn't help anything. But getting them to talk about it more, listening to the child without interrupting. I know as a parent, I tend to say, oh, well, when I was a kid, this happened, you know. That isn't happening. That's not helping your child at all. You need to be an active listener and validate their feelings, that they have a right to feel this way, not, well, you shouldn't feel this way because it's not true. You know, it's, I'm sorry you feel this way. You know, what can we look at? What can we do to help you feel better? And not just say, you know, oh, just cheer up, things will get better. Or I know this is tough, but we'll get through it together. More of how can I help? You know, what can I do to help you? And again, encouraging professional help and letting them know that there's nothing wrong with getting professional help. And that's one of the big things that I think that is so wrong today is we still have not really accepted mental illness in the same way that we accept if you have diabetes or a neurologic problem or a cardiac problem. We still, you know, people are embarrassed to say I have a problem, you know, with mental illness, that this is what's wrong and I need this help. And we shouldn't be embarrassed about it. And again, we need to keep checking on the child without pressuring them and helping them learn good health and coping strategies. And, you know, if they mention self-harm or suicide, to seek professional help, you know, right away. And there's, you know, quite a few places that you can call for helplines if you feel that your child, you know, is at risk immediately.
Yeah, I appreciate that information so much. Well, I want to thank you again for finding time to chat with me today and just talk about the book. People can go check it out. It's available on Amazon. It's called Suicide, A Mother's Journey Through Her Child's Pain. Now that I've spoken to you, it definitely sounds like something I would love to read and support the cause and what you're kind of doing over there to get the word out. I'm glad that I'm able to be a part of your story and spread the word out here a little bit too through our platform. And hopefully people will pay attention to this. I'll definitely want to connect with you a little bit later. I think there's some other information that we could add to this story that I think is very meaningful. But I definitely thank you so much for your time today and talking to us about your new book. And congrats on writing it, honestly, because I know that writing a book is a big process. And when you go through something that's so personalized to you, I know it's a therapeutic thing for the writer as well, like mine has been for me. And so, you know, I congratulate you on just getting to the end. It's very cool.
Okay, thank you, and good luck with your book.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for listening to the show. Please take a minute to head over to www.savfair.com and subscribe to our publication.